Whenever we get together to talk about productivity, I want to share with you the image that I have in mind for both myself and for you as we go through these talks, as we go through what I present here in these YouTube videos. I imagine you being in this place where you wake up in the morning with a sense of being relatively stoked about what you're doing, and you know what you're doing and you know how to do it, and there's a sense of enthusiasm for what you're doing. And you might be in a place where you feel like several notches removed from enthusiasm. Maybe you're in a situation where you feel stuck or powerless or lost, and you're just kind of having a really rough time. And if that's you, that's fair enough. Nevertheless, what I see for you is being in a place of enthusiasm and creative engagement with what you're doing. So what you're doing on a daily basis, you're loving it, you're enjoying it. You feel like your greatest gifts are being drawn upon. You feel like you're being put to the best possible use in your life. And so in order to create a situation like that, we enter into productivity. We enter into what I like to call sustainable high-level productivity, where it's a lot of doing, and it can be very intense and very vigorous, and we can be accomplishing so much. And yet at the same time, it's very holistic in the sense that we're getting all of our needs met, there's enough downtime, and we're switching modes enough so that we're, getting out of the house, and we're spending time with people, and we're getting in touch with nature, and we're taking care of ourselves spiritually, so that every time a week whips around, all of our needs are met and we're ready for the next week. And there's no sense of say like a buildup of sleep debt, or a buildup of fatigue or weariness or whatever. So like all of that is processed in real time on a regular basis. That to me is the state that I'm aiming for, and I'm aiming for you, and that I want all of us to move into as we go forward. And these videos, you can consider each of these videos a tribute to that state, where we come at it from a different angle, whether it's a more metaphysical, spiritual kind of angle, or whether it's a little bit more practical, like is my intention today. I want to come at it from a more practical standpoint. So today, I want to talk about systems. And so the title of this video is Thinking in Productivity Systems. It's inspired by a book that I read a little while ago called Thinking in Systems by Donella Meadows. And I read it maybe about a year ago now, but it changed how I thought about systems. It changed how I thought about a lot of things ever since. It was kind of one of these perspective shifting books that really, it's really practical, and it just allows life to make sense in kind of a new and interesting way that I want to impart to you here. Now, before we go any further, I'd like to offer a quick word from our sponsor. The sponsor's me. I would like for you to consider getting a one-on-one coaching session with me for just $5. Everybody gets their first session for just $5. I've been at this for 5 years. I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of people at this point, over hundreds of sessions. At this point, probably over 1,000 sessions, over 1,000 hours. And the sessions are so deep and they go so well, and people just get so much out of them. They're just really, really open space for us to orient ourselves towards you, towards the direction you're heading in, what's in the way, and a deep dive into how we can remove that which is in the way in order to move you forward on your path. Very, very powerful stuff, and I consider you taking me up on this offer while the offer is still valid. So just $5 for a session. Okay, now back to our regular scheduled broadcast. So what I'm about to share with you, I have a list of 8 points that I want to go through. And the first is that I would like for you to recognize that this is a very powerful lesson, and an unusual and relatively rare lesson on productivity. And so I'm going to take you through a sequence where I'm going to introduce one concept at a time, and when you come out at the end of this, you should have a really good kind of clear idea of how you can implement this into your life and start moving, like you can almost imagine ka-chunking yourself up a gear, like going into a higher gear of productive output as a result of this. So to begin with, I want to explain what it feels like to be and operate from sustainable high-level productivity, because it's different than how you might think. You might think that the subjective experience of it is like going really hard, or it's like being in a sprint but like an unending sprint. And to some of you, it might actually feel like being like super tired or like super exhausted, but like perpetually exhausted, like the way you would if you were to, you know, treat a marathon as if it were a sprint. And so it's a little bit different from that. How it actually feels is, suppose you're in a fighter jet where you're going at, I don't know how fast they go, say 100 miles per hour, if that sounds about reasonable. When you start in a fighter jet, when you take off, there's the thrust of the G-force as it pushes you back as you acclimatize to your velocity. And then once you spend enough time going at that velocity, the G-force wears off, and then you are able to sit back upright, and you're able to kind of, it feels relatively still. It feels like you're just being still, even though you're actually moving really fast. And for whatever it's worth, I mean, even on planet Earth, I believe the planet is actually moving very fast. I think it's something like tens of thousands of miles per hour that the Earth is moving, but it feels relatively still to us because we've acclimatized to that speed. Whereas if we were to suddenly go quicker, or if we were to suddenly stop, then it would feel like we're moving very fast. We might be flung off the planet, for example. So being in productivity, it feels like being still, even though, and it feels like, and it can still feel dissatisfactory in the sense that you can actually be really productive. It's possible to be massively productive and be relatively dissatisfied because you carry this dissatisfaction with you and this sense of like, I'm not moving fast enough. It's possible to be moving incredibly fast while at the same time feeling like you're not moving fast enough. And it's only if something throws us off, like our track, you know, if something kind of, you know, maybe run into some kind of emergency, or something collapses, or suddenly all the money runs out and, you know, we have to like stop and take care of some basic things, only then coming out of it and looking back on the track that we were on, we would say, oh yeah, I was flying high. Like, I think a lot of us, perhaps yourself too, you may have a memory of a time when you were really productive and doing really well. And at the time it didn't feel that way, but looking back on it, it's like, oh yeah. So this is just something to keep in mind. It can be very deceptive. Especially since when we step into sustainable high-level productivity, it's such an exacting and energetic state to be in that it takes practice to be in. And so in order to get up into it, we need to set foundational steps, and we need to have a willingness. We need to adopt a willingness for that process to be relatively slow. And so part of systems thinking is setting up systems so that over time things are getting better, and we're willing to allow these things to take time because we know that the train is going to head to its destination, because we know that we're going to get where we need to get. And so there's no need to be urgent or panicked or rushed anymore. The idea of working in systems and thinking in systems is that everything happens in its due time, and so therefore I'm free to enjoy the process because the systems are operating for me, and all I have to do is maintain them. Another thing that it feels like flow, and it feels a little bit like mesmerism. So I've spoken a lot about flow in my earlier videos, and if you want to deep dive into the flow state, then go into some of these earlier videos. I believe one is titled Operate from the Flow State, and you should see it there. Flow is to be in this, it's a very sort of fluid and playful state, and it's very light. Like, it feels very playful, it feels very exhilarating, and there's a big trust element too that we're going to get to a little bit later, where you're trusting that you're on the right path, and so you're free to just enjoy what you're doing. The mesmerism part refers to one of my favorite things that I ever learned from the writer Haruki Murakami, and I reference this often. Is that Haruki Murakami, he's this like really mysterious Japanese writer. He's put out a lot of books that kind of create this surreal kind of esoteric vibe about them. Very, very interesting stuff. The only fiction writer that I ever read. And when he describes his writing process, he describes it as mesmerism, in that he will wake up at 4 a.m. every day, and he'll write from, he'll wake up and make his coffee and write from say 4 a.m. until 9 a.m. I assume I got these numbers right. I may be off a little bit, but something like that. And then at 9 a.m., he'll switch into his running gear and go for a big long distance run. And then he'll go for his big long distance run and then come back, say early afternoon, noon or 1 p.m., this kind of thing. And then he'll come back and make himself a sandwich and listen to jazz music and then maybe take care of the house, go to sleep, and then repeat the whole process again. And so then one gets the image that as you go through these loops, because that's how systems work. Systems are loops that have the friction removed from them so that they can become feedback loops where the velocity can pick up because it's lubricated, because you can just kind of whip around and there's so much enjoyment as you go from one stage to the next again and again and again, that you actually go deeper into your own unconscious mind. And you can unearth deeper wisdom. You can get in touch with deeper and deeper elements of yourself, deeper reservoirs of creativity, and bring out new shit, authentic shit, real stuff, shit, stuff, real authentic stuff that comes up. The stuff that when you produce it, it just creates an effect on people that either experience it or witness it or read it or watch it or whatever it is, however people interact with your work. So the mesmerism element is really key to sustainable high-level productivity as well as flow. All of these being different ways to describe the subjective experience of what it's like to be in it. So to do this, what we do is we create systems, and we create systems that contain systems, meta systems outside of meta systems. I'll offer an example here. And so one would be, say, if you want to step into productivity, usually, especially, if we were to be working together, little promo there, is that we would actually talk about your sleep. That would be the very first thing. It's like, is your sleep online? Almost everybody that I talk to has sort of a jagged, frictiony relationship with sleep. It's not exactly perfect. And for the time being, I'm in the same camp. Because as I've mentioned, my wife gave birth to our daughter just recently, and she's 6 months old now, and we're currently working on developing a sleep system that we don't have, and sleep is just such a foundational backbone to everything that if sleep's not in place, if it's not under control, and if it's not systematized, then it's like your boat becomes like a colander. You can't float in it. It's like it's the backbone of everything. So sleep means getting to bed at the right time and waking up at the right time. And it means going to bed at the same time every day and waking up at the same time every day. And it means a few other things. It means setting up a good sleep environment and so on and so forth. And so a system would be, make sure you get to bed on time. And so I might put that to you. Okay, get to bed on time. And you might say, you might be like, okay, great, I'll start doing it. Good, no fuss, no muss. Or you might be like, yeah, I would like to, but I keep forgetting. I just get so busy. I get wrapped up in the internet. I go down a YouTube click hole, and now it's 1 a.m. and I just go to bed too late. It's like, okay, so let's set up a system so that you're reminded to get to bed on time. What would that system be? And it might be to set an alarm on your phone. It's like, okay, great. Is that enough? Maybe it's not enough. Maybe you need to set 2 alarms so that one goes off to tell you to prepare for bed and the other one is to actually get you to bed. So we look at how can we set up a structure so that the structure automatically executes itself and you just have to follow the path. You just have to take the route down, into sleep. And so you can set it up and then go through an iteration of it and then evaluate the system. Did it work? If so, great. If not, why not? And how can we modify the system? Do we need to set up an accountability? Do we need, do you need to set up an accountability with the friend so that you and your friend are both getting to bed on time and waking up on time? So that's what we're talking about when we talk about setting up systems. Systems are dispassionate. They're non-judgmental. So we totally remove the judgment element when it comes to you and your sleep. It's not like you should be sleeping and, you know, you're not sleeping enough and what the hell's wrong with you that you're not going to bed on time and, oh my God, you're messing everything up. So all of that. So, you know, I would really, really, really encourage you to watch my previous video, the one just before this, on freedom from obligation, because we go really deep into getting rid of the should have, have to quality about life. Very, very important lesson there. But nevertheless, systems are free of that judgment. Systems just execute themselves, and then you follow along with them. You follow the path. Another one would be quitting smoking. So say you're a smoker. So how can we set up a system so that you quit smoking? You know, the addiction can be really difficult to work with sometimes. Well, one would be, you know, if you have, say, 20 cigarettes per day, set up a system so that it's one less per day over 20 days until you get down to 0. And if that works, great. If it doesn't work, why didn't it work? And how can we modify the system so that it will work? Do we need a gentler off-ramp? Do we need to, you know, have like 2 days per thing so that it's like 20 cigarettes per day, 2 days in a row, and then take it down to 19, 2 days in a row, then take it down to 18, whatever it is. But what's nice is that once the system is set up and you've activated it and it's being executed, then it means that as time goes on, everything is getting better. So you should really enjoy the 17 cigarettes that you're having, and then the 16 cigarettes that you're having, and trust that because you've put this habit in place, your health is getting better over time, and so you can begin relaxing immediately. So now, I'd like to talk about the biggest resistance that we have to systems. The thing that almost everybody has a problem with when it comes to setting up systems, which is that for those of us who are attracted to, say, the self-help world, the self-empowerment kind of world, those of us who really want to actualize our potential and become great and get a lot done, these are generally people, statistically, that carry a rebellious kind of air about them. These are people who rebel against crowd thinking, against, you know, group think, mob think, people who want to march to their own drummer and be their own person. And that's fair enough. These are very important qualities because it allows you to imagine your own life for yourself and, you know, live it on your own terms. And so that's pretty exciting. But sometimes we'll take this concept so far that we actually rebel against all leadership, including our own. And so what will happen then is we'll set up a ritual or a routine or a system, and then we'll do it for 3 days, and then something in us will arise that will go, F this, I'm not interested in this, and sabotage the whole thing. And we'll be super confused, like, why did that happen? And so you may look inside and you may see in yourself that you hate routine. And you don't want your days to resemble each other, because then you become like those people that you promised you'd never become. Like when I was a kid, you know, so I'm a 90s kid, right? And so I would see, you know, people, like office people working in cubicles and, you know, just, you know, like this sort of Dilbert style work where it's like you punch in, punch out, same thing every day. And it looks miserable. It looks like you're wasting your life. And so I would make this commitment, like so many of us, to never have days that resemble each other, and to create freedom, to have your days be varied and interesting and adventurous all the time. And so again, like all of that's admirable and amazing. But what I want to almost sell you on this new form of freedom, the freedom that comes from stepping into a mesmerism with your own life. Even if it's for only a period, like you can commit to, say, a 1 month or 3 month period of mesmerism where you're just like really, really getting some important stuff done, after which you may take a break and go fly to a different part of the world and, you know, go on an adventure and switch it up. But there's a freedom that comes from being able to just enter into systems. And the distinction is we go from valuing freedom from structure i.e. the freedom to do whatever the hell I want, whenever the hell I want, because I'm a free person and I want to be able to roam and be a wandering nomad. Check the time here, good. From that to the freedom within structure, the freedom to trust the structure that you've created, and again, we're going to get into this word trust, that it's good enough for you, that it's appropriate, and that your potential is being actualized through it. And so what you might do then is you might actually just say to yourself, like really with your words out loud, I'm willing to exist within structure. I'm willing to give myself structure. And try this out loud. I'm willing to follow my own leadership. I'm willing to follow my own leadership. I'm willing to operate within systems. I'm willing to operate within routine. I enter into systems and routine with my eyes open. There's a fear sometimes that we'll get trapped by routine. And I think we can clearly agree that there's no fear of getting trapped by your own routine. There's no way of getting trapped. It's you that's making it and maintaining it. You can stop it whenever you want. Everything that you commit to here in terms of systems, you can stop whenever the hell you want. That freedom is always there. The freedom from structure. It's always accessible to you. But the freedom within structure is so much higher quality, so much more fulfilling, so much more exciting because now you're building yourself up instead of, moving sort of laterally and spatially and moving from one thing to the next. You're building something up. It's just so much more fulfilling. So now let's get to this piece of trust. And the trust is that returning to Haruki Murakami's mesmerism, so waking up, writing, going for a run, eating a sandwich, listening to music, cleaning up the house, tidying up, sleeping, and going through that system. And the thing with doing that for multiple days in a row so that it turns into a week, and multiple weeks into a row so that it turns into months, and so then you have this sort of like engine, is that if you do this with doubt, if there's doubt in your mind that you're doing the right thing, and if there's fear that you might be doing the wrong thing and wasting your time, then it will throw you off and it'll be like a little stone in your shoe. And the part of you that would resist routine and systems will get leverage over you, and it will allow you to sabotage yourself out of what you're doing. And so therefore the trust element is key. And trust is an inherently unsafe thing because you can't take your mind all the way into trust. You can't make trust safe. There's always a leap when it comes to trust. But nevertheless, I want to encourage you to make that leap, that you may set up a system. You can start with a small one and let that be enough for you. And to trust that the system will work. And to trust that you are able to maintain this system, that you're able to actually create this change that you're asking to make. And that even if you failed before and you've been unable to discipline yourself before, that as evidenced by the fact that you're listening to this video, and as evidenced by the fact that you keep trying, keep attempting new things, it means that it's possible for you and you're just figuring out the way to do it. So, where to start? So as you take these lessons, I hope all of this is gelling, because I've been talking about systems in different ways, but you can see how it comes together, I think, at this point. And all that would be left now is to discuss how to move forward with this. Well, we can begin with a question, which is, what needs are perpetually going unmet in you? What do you need that you're not getting? Is it enough sleep? Is it enough nutrition? Is it something related to health? Are you leaving your work too late and you're constantly rushed and nervous? Do you need more exposure to people? Do you need to surround yourself by better people? Are you not tidying up your room? Are you not tidying up your environment? Is it messy and kind of uninviting and it's creating too much friction? So where's there friction in your life? Where's your life unlubricated so that it's like kind of just like sandpaper against sandpaper, and all of your energy and mojo is just getting burnt up in that friction? So journal with that, make a whole list, get the whole list, and then maybe pick one or two items and create a new system that will undo the friction. And what you're doing is, because you'll be making not just this one thing, but you'll take all the time that you need to establish this system to get it fully functional and online so that you're used to it and acclimatized to it. And then you'll start adding more, again, allowing this to take time until you're acclimatized, until it becomes systematic, until it becomes habitual. Then all of these systems begin to speak to each other and they start to create a meta system as an emergent quality. It just emerges on its own, just in the same way that water comes out of the combination of hydrogen and oxygen. And this is the construction of your state of sustainable high-level productivity from the inside out. This is the state of high engagement with life, with your life, this sense of really giving 100% and receiving 100% back and having things be kind of exciting. And so that's the talk. Would you please be so kind as to hit like for me? And would you be so kind as to hit subscribe? If you hit subscribe, you can consider that as you hiring me to be your coach. It's a fun way of looking at it. And the like is we'll call it the payment. And that's the metaphor that we can work with going forward. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time.